My name is Emily Parker. I'm 34 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I ended a relationship in the middle of a parking lot without raising my voice once. Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal in the way people expect, but because of one sentence. You know you'll never be more than this, right? That was the moment everything became simple. Daniel Hayes is 30. We had been together a little over 2 years in Raleigh, North Carolina. I worked as a logistics coordinator for a medical supply distributor. Not glamorous, very real. Freight delays, damaged pallets, vendors who lied, warehouses that overpromised, routing mistakes before sunrise, problems that had to be solved before hospitals started calling. Daniel worked in social media for a restaurant group. He had a way of making things sound bigger than they were, including himself. When we first started dating, he said he liked that I was steady, reliable, goal-oriented. He said I made him feel grounded. Later, I realized what he really meant was manageable, predictable, safe in a way that didn't threaten him. About a year into the relationship, I started changing. Not loudly, not dramatically, quiet changes. I stopped wasting money during the week, cut back on drinking, joined a gym, started waking up earlier, signed up for a supply chain certification program online because I was tired of being the woman who fixed problems while other people with better titles got credit for solving them. I started reading instead of scrolling, saving instead of spending, acting like my future was something real. By the spring before everything ended, I had lost 19 pounds, completed half my certification, and built just over $16,000 in savings. I was making $68,000 a year, and for the first time in my life, I had a plan. Move up internally, or leave. Finish the certification. Buy property before 36. Become the version of myself I kept thinking about late at night. Daniel hated almost all of it. Not openly at first. At first, it was jokes. He called my meal prep airport food. My class's spreadsheet homework. My 5:30 alarms, divorced mom behavior, which was interesting, considering I had never been married. I never tried to pull him into any of it. That part mattered to me. I didn't ask him to wake up early. Didn't tell him how to eat. Didn't lecture him about discipline. I just changed my own life. And somehow that made him sharper, colder. By the month. The final moment happened after dinner in North Hills with two of his friends and one of their girlfriends. I almost didn't go. I had a vendor meeting the next morning and wanted to be sharp. But Daniel said I'd become boring lately, that I needed to be more social. So I went. That was the mistake. He spent the entire night taking small shots at me across the table. When I ordered water after one drink, he smiled and said, "Careful, Emily's training for absolutely nothing." When I passed on nachos, he leaned back and asked if one chip would ruin my leadership journey. When someone asked how work was going, he cut in before I could answer. "She's trying to become the CEO of pallets." Everyone laughed, because they thought it was a joke. I smiled once, then I stopped. On the drive back, he kept going. Said I'd become intense. Said nobody cared about my little classes. Said I acted like I was better than normal people because I went to bed before midnight and listened to podcasts with words like optimization in the title. I stayed quiet, because I knew if I spoke too soon, I would say something that ended everything. Then we pulled into my parking lot. Engine off. Silence. Just for a second. He looked at me with that half smirk, the one he used when he thought he was delivering some kind of truth. And then he said it. "You know you'll never be more than this, right?" I turned toward him. More than what? He gestured vaguely, like the answer should have been obvious. This. Logistics girl, routine girl. You can read all the books you want, but you're still just you. Something in me went still. Not loud. Not explosive. Just finished. Because once someone says the quiet part out loud, everything after that becomes unnecessary. I nodded once. Then I said, "Then watch me leave." He blinked. I opened the car door and stepped out. At first, he thought I meant the conversation. The moment. The night. He followed me into my apartment, still talking, saying I was overreacting to one sentence, that he was just being honest, that he was trying to motivate me. Motivate. Interesting word for disrespect. I didn't respond. I walked to the closet, pulled out storage bins, and started packing his things. That's when his voice changed. "What are you doing?" "I'm helping you out." He laughed. But there was something under it now. Something tight. "You're being dramatic." I kept packing. His toiletries from the bathroom. His hoodie from the chair. His charger from beside the couch. Little pieces of him scattered across a space that suddenly felt mine again. It took maybe 20 minutes to realize how much of my life had been quietly accommodating someone who didn't respect me. He crossed his arms. "So that's it? 2 years because I bruised your ego?" I looked at him. "No. 2 years because you finally said out loud what you've been showing me for months." That shut him up. Real silence. He grabbed his bag. Said he'd stay with his friend. Said I should think carefully before doing something I'd regret. I said, bring back the key by Sunday. He paused at the door. You'll call me in a month when all this self-improvement nonsense burns out. I met his eyes. Drive safe. And then he left. The apartment was quiet after that. A knocked-over calendar on the floor. His things half-packed in bins. The air felt different. Lighter. Cleaner. I stood there for a long time, waiting for regret, for doubt, for something. What came instead was relief. And that was how I knew I had done the right thing. Sunday afternoon, Daniel came back with his friend Mia in the passenger seat. Sunglasses on. Controlled expression. The kind people wear when they think composure can still rewrite what already happened. I had everything ready by the door. 3 bins, 1 garment bag, 1 tote full of shoes, his key in an envelope on top. He looked at the stack, then at me. You're really doing this? I already did. He handed over the key like it offended him to have to touch the moment with his own hands. Then he stood there waiting, maybe for me to soften, maybe for me to ask if we could talk, maybe for some final crack in my face that would reassure him I was still reachable. I gave him nothing. As he turned to leave, he threw one last line over his shoulder. Nobody's unstoppable, Emily. I closed the door before Mia could look back at me. The next morning, I had the locks rekeyed. $165. Worth every penny. The strange part was how quickly the silence settled into something useful. My life felt quieter after Daniel left. But bigger, too. Like someone had removed a low ceiling I had gotten so used to ducking under, I forgot it was there. About 6 weeks later, I finished the second stage of my certification. Around the same time, one of our operations managers took a job in Atlanta, and my director pulled me into an interim lead role while they decided whether to hire outside or promote internally. The temporary bump brought me to $79,000 plus bonus eligibility. Not life-changing money yet, but enough to confirm I had not imagined my own momentum. For the first time, I was in meetings I used to prepare spreadsheets for but never attend. Now I was in the room, speaking, solving the problem in real time. It was strange how calm that felt. No dramatic transformation, no movie montage energy, just competence finally being given a chair at the table. I kept the rest of my promises to myself too. Gym 4 days a week, Saturday meal prep, books instead of doom scrolling. No drunk backsliding, no late night lonely texts. No, maybe he didn't mean it like that. That part mattered more than I can explain. People love to call discipline a phase when they're waiting for your old habits to reopen access for them. Daniel definitely was. The first text came from an unknown number. Heard you got the new role. Guess you finally found your little lane. I stared at it for half a second, then deleted it. No response. Later that week, Mia left me a voicemail saying Daniel was processing the breakup differently than I was, and maybe I could try being kind instead of cold. I deleted that too. Then he started appearing in places he had never once cared about before. My coffee shop near the warehouse. My grocery store on Sunday afternoons. The walking trail by Lake Lynn, where I went after work when I needed to think. Every time he had a reason. Didn't know you came here. Small world. Wow, you look different. He said that last one twice. What he meant was leaner, calmer, harder to reach. I was polite the first time. After that, nothing. No long conversations. No emotional leftovers for him to feed on. No irritation for him to twist into proof that I still cared. That seemed to bother him more than anger ever could have. Then social media started. Quotes about women who confuse routine with growth. Captions about fake ambition. One selfie with the line, "Imagine changing your whole personality for a title bump." He didn't tag me. He didn't need to. The unexpected ally in all of this was his older sister, Claire. She messaged me one evening around 9. "Daniel's telling family you dumped him because he pushed you to want more." That sounded edited. What actually happened? I read the message twice. Then I sent her one screenshot. Just his line from the parking lot. "You know you'll never be more than this, right?" She replied maybe 2 minutes later. Wow, okay. That is not how he told it. Then another message came through. "For what it's worth, keep going." It was a small thing, but it mattered. Because when someone from the other side of the wreckage sees the truth and says it plainly, something in you unclenches. Around the same time, a man named Ethan Cole started showing up regularly in my work life. He was a procurement analyst from our Durham office, helping with a systems rollout for a few weeks. Smart, dry sense of humor, calm in a way that didn't feel performative. No chaos, no need to dominate a room, no little tests disguised as jokes. We started grabbing coffee after long vendor meetings. Nothing serious, just 2 people who had survived enough bad management to appreciate silence and competence in another person. One Thursday evening, we ended up talking in the parking lot for almost an hour. Books, bad bosses, How weirdly political warehouses can be. It should have felt small. It didn't. It felt easy. And after Daniel, easy felt almost suspicious. I caught myself waiting for the hidden edge, the subtle mockery, the moment Ethan would turn a sincere conversation into a competition. He didn't. He just listened. Then he said, "You know, you talk about logistics like some people talk about architecture." I laughed. Is that an insult? Not at all. I think it means you actually care how things hold. That stayed with me longer than it should have. Daniel found out about Ethan faster than I expected. Probably LinkedIn. Probably mutual friends. Probably boredom. One Thursday, I pulled into my apartment complex and saw him sitting on the hood of his car outside my building. I stopped about 6 feet away. "You can't be here." He smiled like he thought he still had access to charm. "Relax, I just wanted to talk." "No." He slid off the hood slowly. "So there is someone else." "That's none of your business." He laughed, but it came out thin. "Wow, so all this growth was really just to impress the next guy faster." There was a version of me, maybe 6 months earlier, who would have tried to explain, to defend myself, to prove he was being unfair. That version of me was gone. I took out my phone. "Leave, or I call property security." His expression changed immediately. "Are you serious?" "Completely." He stared at me for a second too long, like he still believed the old Emily would appear if he pushed hard enough. She didn't. He got back in his car, but not before throwing one more line through the open window. "You're acting like you're unstoppable now." I watched him drive off without answering. That word again. Unstoppable. The funny thing was, I did not feel unstoppable. I felt tired some nights, lonely sometimes, careful all the time. But I also felt something stronger than confidence. I felt aligned. There's a difference. Confidence can be loud. Alignment is quiet. It's waking up and doing what you said you would do. It's not negotiating with disrespect just because it's familiar. It's realizing that peace feels unfamiliar at first, only because chaos made such a convincing home. A few days after Daniel showed up at my building, Ethan asked if I wanted to have dinner the following week. Not coffee between meetings. Not a conversation beside parked cars. An actual date. He said it simply, no performance in it. "There's a place downtown I think you'd like. Quiet, good steaks, no forced ambiance, just food." I smiled before I could stop myself. "That sounds strangely specific. I've learned to be precise." That made me laugh. I said yes. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, looking at my phone longer than necessary. Not because I was unsure, because I knew something had shifted. Not into love, not into certainty, just into possibility. And possibility, after a relationship like the one I had just left, feels almost dangerous. Like holding a lit match in a room you worked very hard to rebuild. Still, I said yes. And somewhere under the relief and routine and progress, I could already feel it. Daniel was not done. Men like him rarely leave when they lose affection. They leave when they lose audience. And silence had become the one thing I would not give back. 2 weeks after Daniel showed up outside my building, things escalated. Fast. Ethan and I went on our first real date at a steakhouse downtown called Marlowe's. Quiet lighting. No crowd noise bleeding into conversation. The kind of place where you don't have to raise your voice to be heard. It felt intentional. Stable. We were halfway through appetizers when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a third time. I glanced down. "I know you're at Marlowe's. Nice dress." My stomach didn't drop. It tightened. Controlled, focused. Ethan noticed. "Everything okay?" "Not really." Before I could decide what to do next, the hostess approached the table. Her smile was polite, but strained. "There's a woman at the front asking for you by name." Of course there was. I set my napkin down. "She's an ex. Please don't let her near the table." The hostess nodded quickly and walked away. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then Daniel pushed past the front anyway. He was dressed like he had planned this. Button-down shirt I'd seen before, hair done, expression sharp in a way that wasn't emotional. It was calculated. He walked straight to the table. "So this is what we're doing now?" Ethan stayed seated, calm, watching, not reacting for me. I stood up. "Daniel, leave." He ignored me and looked directly at Ethan. "Be careful, she gets obsessive when she's trying to prove something." There it was. Projection. Clean and obvious. Ethan didn't flinch. "I think you should go." Wrong answer. Daniel reached for my water glass and dumped it across the tablecloth. The sound was small, but the impact wasn't. Conversations around us started to slow. Heads turned. He looked at me like he was waiting. Waiting for anger. For a scene. For something he could use. He didn't get it. I stepped back. Signaled the manager. "I need security and police. I have a documented harassment situation with an ex who is refusing to leave." The word documented changed everything. Daniel's face shifted immediately. Tears. Fast. Like a switch. We're just talking. This is a misunderstanding. The manager didn't argue. He stepped away and made the call. Daniel's voice got louder. You're really going to humiliate me like this? In front of everyone? I didn't answer, because this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about pattern. The police arrived in under 10 minutes. The restaurant had footage. I had texts. I had the earlier building report. Because yes, I had documented that too. Daniel was issued a trespass warning on the spot. He cried harder then. Said I was being cruel. Said Ethan was enjoying this. Ethan didn't even look at him. He just stood beside me. Steady. That mattered more than anything he could have said. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. It wasn't. First came the blocked calls. Then voicemails. Some crying. Some angry. One after midnight that said, I can see your light on. That one sat with me. Because it meant he had been outside again. Then came the fake emergency. A message from Mia's number. Daniel collapsed. They took him to Rex Hospital. If you ever cared about him, come now. I didn't go. I called Mia directly. She answered confused. Her phone had been on the kitchen counter. Daniel had been at her apartment. No hospital. No collapse. Just another attempt to pull me back into reaction. That was the moment something shifted fully inside me. Up until then, a small part of me had still hoped this would burn out on its own. It didn't. So I stopped waiting. The next morning, I filed a police report. Screenshots. Call logs. Restaurant report number. Fake hospital message. Everything. The officer told me what they always tell you. Document everything. Don't engage. Call if he appears again. So I documented everything. Then it moved into my work life. Daniel somehow found Ethan's company email and sent him a message claiming I had a history of controlling behavior and career jealousy in relationships. Ethan forwarded it immediately. To me. And to HR. That was a mistake Daniel didn't understand he was making. My company didn't play around with external harassment tied to employees. HR had me write a full timeline. Security updated their front desk instructions. My director, Allison, called me into her office. She closed the door before she spoke. Your personal life is your business until it becomes a safety issue for the office. This is now a safety issue. I nodded. I understand. She studied me for a second, then said something I didn't expect. You're handling this correctly. Keep doing that. Unexpected ally number 2. Then Daniel called my mother. That was his worst move. My mom lives in Cary and has exactly 0 patience for people who think emotion erases behavior. He tried to tell her I was spiraling, that I was being manipulated by a coworker, that I was throwing away a good relationship because I couldn't handle pressure. She listened. Then she said, if my daughter got promoted, healthier, calmer, and safer after leaving you, I don't think she's the one spiraling. Then she hung up. A minute later, I got a text. Oh, absolutely not. I smiled for the first time that day. After that, things moved faster. Attorney retainer, $2,600. Cease and desist sent that Friday. Daniel answered it by showing up outside the warehouse at shift change the next Monday. Told reception he needed to discuss a housing emergency with me. I didn't come down. Security escorted him out. That gave me enough. I filed for a protective order. 3 weeks later, we were in court. Daniel wore a neutral sweater, hair pulled back, expression softened like he had been coached to appear smaller, less threatening. His attorney went with the usual approach. Heartbreak, confusion, regret. Said he was struggling to process the breakup and reacted badly after seeing me move on quickly. My attorney didn't argue, didn't dramatize, just presented the timeline. Parking lot message, unknown number texts, building report, restaurant footage, trespass warning, fake hospital message, voicemail transcript. I can see your light on. Ethan's forwarded email, warehouse security log, cease and desist. At one point, the judge read that voicemail out loud, then looked directly at Daniel. That is not closure, that is intimidation. The room went quiet. After that, there wasn't much left to say. The protective order was granted. 1 year, no contact, no approaching my apartment, my workplace, anywhere I was present. Daniel cried in the hallway afterward. Not loudly, not dramatically, just unraveling. His mother was there. She looked tired. As she passed me, she said quietly, I'm sorry. I nodded once, because some apologies don't need conversation. They just need to be heard. And left there. 3 months after the court date, my interim title became permanent. Operations manager. Salary moved to $94,000, with bonus potential that pushed it into 6 figures in a strong year. I had saved just over $28,000 by then. Between the raise and a first-time buyer program, I closed on a 3-bedroom townhouse in Garner. The down payment hurt. Closing costs hurt more, but seeing my name on that paperwork didn't feel like relief. It felt like confirmation, not of success, of direction. Ethan and I were still together, Steady, low drama, adult. He came to the closing with coffee and cinnamon rolls, set them on the kitchen counter like it was the most normal thing in the world, and said, "So this is what happens when logistics people follow through." I smiled. This is what happens when they stop explaining themselves. He nodded like that made perfect sense. That was the difference. No tension hiding inside the quiet. No subtle competition. Just space. The final strange moment happened about a month after I moved. It was around 6:15 in the evening. I was leaving my office with my laptop bag in one hand and a small box of framed photos from a leadership event in the other. That's when I saw him. Daniel, standing across the lot near the visitor spaces. Not close enough to violate the order. Close enough to be intentional. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, in presence. In certainty. He didn't move right away. Just stood there like he was trying to measure the distance between who I had been and who I was now. Then he stepped forward, stopped at the edge of where he was allowed. His voice broke before the words even formed. "I made a mistake." I didn't answer. He swallowed hard. "I thought you were going to come back. I thought this was a phase." There it was. Not regret. Assumption. "I didn't think you were actually going to do all this." I shifted the box slightly in my arms. Still didn't step closer. Because distance mattered now. Not just legally. Internally. I said, "That was always the problem." He blinked. "You only respected it once it worked." Silence stretched between us. He looked at the ground, then back at me. "Can we talk? Just once, somewhere public, for closure." "No." The answer came clean, immediate, no anger inside it. Just clarity. "And you need to leave before I call your lawyer and mine." He let out a short laugh, but it didn't hold. "So that's it? You become this whole new person and I just disappear?" I adjusted my grip on the box. "No." His eyes lifted. "I became more of who I already was." A pause. "You just didn't think it would keep going." That landed. I could see it. Not like a realization. Like a loss he couldn't negotiate with. He nodded slowly. Tried to say something else. Didn't. Then he stepped back. I got into my car, closed the door, and drove away. That was the last time I saw him. Here's the thing about becoming unstoppable. It almost never feels dramatic while you're living it. It looks boring. From the outside. It looks like alarms you don't snooze. Meals you prep when nobody is watching. Classes you finish after long days. Money you save when it would be easier to spend. Boundaries you hold when giving in would be quieter. People call that boring. Right up until it starts working. Then suddenly the same discipline they mocked becomes ambition. The same consistency becomes drive. The same boundaries become confidence. And the same people who laughed first are the ones standing at a distance, asking to be let back in. Daniel thought my life had a ceiling, because his did. He looked at routine, structure, and long-term thinking and saw limitation. I looked at those same things and saw leverage. That was the difference. He needed me familiar. I needed to grow. And familiar people get uncomfortable when growth doesn't ask for permission. Not everyone who says they love you can handle your expansion. Not everyone who benefits from your stability respects your potential. And the moment someone uses your current position as proof of your permanent limit, believe them. They're telling you exactly how small they need you to stay. Daniel said nobody is unstoppable. He was wrong. You don't become unstoppable by proving something to someone else. You become unstoppable the moment you stop negotiating with people who are committed to misunderstanding you.